What is up, everyone? We're back. We are live. College basketball, our second conference preview. Did Big East last week, kind of dipped our toes in, and now we got the Big 12. Awesome conference here. I've got two guests with me today. Always start with my guy, Gav. Number two in the books here, Gav. We were grinding these previews out on our own sheets earlier this week. How you doing, man?
Yeah, good. It's not only the sheets, it's distilling, what feels like 4 or 5 months of, off season, looking at every analytic that's out there and trying to keep it concise enough to fit 16 teams in and, not keep everyone here 6 hours. So, that's my main priority throughout this show.
Yeah, we got a great guest here. We're excited to have Matthew Winnick on from Basket Under Review. He's at Matthew Winnick on Twitter. He's got a podcast, Weekend Under Review, that's really good with Brian Ralph that just started a couple weeks ago. I want to talk a little bit about that and Basket Under Review before we get underway here, breaking these teams down.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on. Obviously, Basket Under Review, we get deep into the weeds like you guys do, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I come from a journalism background where I've done more than enough of my fair share of top 25 teams in the nation. And while that's all fun and good, if you don't get into the nitty gritty, even with these power conference teams, and what's the point? So that's what I'm hoping to get to today. And I know that with you guys, we will definitely get everything well covered.
Yeah. Little different angle than you probably approach everything at, but I think it's going to be fun. We got 16 teams to talk about. So let's get underway here. We go in alphabetical order. We'll start with Arizona. Big change with them losing Caleb Love. Vaysar's gone. KJ Lewis. Gav, we'll start with you. What do you think of the roster turn over here? A little different approach from Arizona, bringing in a bunch of freshmen and internationals instead of using the transfer portal here.
Yeah, it was another top 15 year for Tommy Lloyd, another top 15 offense, 14-6 in the Big 12 last year. Postseason success will ultimately be, the final measuring stick for Tommy Lloyd. He's already kind of proven what he can accomplish in the regular season and, bring back a pretty good core returners like Jaden Bradley. This is his third year in the system, coming over from Alabama, really high floor, two-way point guard, has never been kind of a high usage guy and has never been a great shooter. So that's kind of the final steps, for him to take. But a guy that, you certainly want at least running your team. It's going to get, do well for you on both sides of the ball. So that's kind of where it starts. You bring Anthony Del Orso back, did his job, was an elite three-point shooter in the first year coming over from Campbell. More of a non-defensive entity. So you're going to need certainly some options behind him. You can't have him playing full minutes, but then you probably have, what I would say might be the best platoon at the 5 in the country with Toby Awaka and Mo Krivas. Krivas will start. He's the much better defender, a 7'2" Lithuanian inside. Will be very efficient both ways. Awaka's got his foul issues, but, is probably the pound for pound best rebounder in the country. So, that's at least what the core that they bring back. I'll let Matthew get into some of the freshmen because ultimately the freshmen really will determine kind of where this team ends up because the upside is immense, but the floor is probably, the lowest that it's been under a Tommy Lloyd team so far in his early tenure.
Yeah, listen, what we forget about last year, obviously the offense was great, and obviously they made that NCAA tournament run to the Sweet 16, but they were the 10th best defense in the Big 12 last year, at least in league play per KenPom. And they didn't necessarily fix that. Obviously you can have your opinion on Caleb Love as an offensive player, but he was not a severe negative defensively. I think that there were definitely other parts in that roster, like Anthony Del Orso mentioned, someone who is not a defense first player, and he's going to have to play big minutes, especially early in the year as the freshmen kind of come along. And then Toby Awaka, for all of his strengths rebounding the basketball, I think people often kind of tie that in with defense, which it really is not the same thing. He's a 6'8" ground bound 5-man. So his rim protection and his mobility is not really where you want it to be at. Mo Krivas, obviously way bigger, but not an extremely, elite athlete. So now you're starting to have to project these freshmen as the best defenders on the roster. And to me, that's just, especially early on, not going to be easy to do. So when you look at their non-conference slate and some of the, those tough matchups that Tommy Lloyd schedules every year, I wonder how that defense holds up.
Yeah, I mean, this team opens up against Florida the first Monday of the season. That'll be an interesting test for this front court. Both Krivas and Awaka, really high foul rates too. So super productive when they're out here on the court. Awaka 1.05 fantasy point per minute. Krivas 1.08. Kind of worry about the minute ceiling for both of them, especially with Pete joining the front court here. Matthew, why don't you talk about the freshmen a little bit here? They've got Burries, Pete, a couple of international guys too.
Yeah, so Braden Burries is going to be a scorer first guy. He's going to be someone that's putting the ball in the basket, early and often. With Jaden Bradley's more of that table setter, although he's going to be able to get downhill and get his as well. Koa Pete, kind of like a traditional four-man of the, Cameron Boozer, who's probably the more hype prospect, but similar guys, they'll have the ball in their hands a fair bit, walking double-double, 18 and 10 per se, give or take, given the likely starting role he'll have. And then the international guys, Aristode, Karchenkov, and Gay are obviously of varying levels of ready to be producing. Aristode has been sort of pegged as the best of the three, more of a 3-and-D role player, but none of those three Euro guys are going to have insane roles in terms of usage.
Yeah, Gav, what are your thoughts here before we wrap up Arizona? I think they're going to be a tough team to kind of figure out early on for DFS as we find out the true roles with the freshmen. But yeah, what do you think overall about the Frosh and just less?
Yeah, I mean, Pete's going to command most of the minutes at the power forward, right? I think like what could be the swing skill of this team is whether or not he can at least be a threat from three. He doesn't have to be a super high efficient or high volume guy from three, but he has to command some shot gravity. Last year's team was Tommy Lloyd's worst three-point shooting team by over 100 spots. And this team, I think, may be worse, especially if Pete is not even, wanting to shoot threes, much less is inefficient doing so. So the thing about Pete and Burries is they are two freshmen who they may not have the highest ceilings in terms of what they end up being in the NBA, but they are very far along their development curve for their age. Burries is old. Both are very physically stout and ready to play. So it's not like a team that's super reliant on freshmen that's going to take a ton of time, who's going to be much better. They still could be okay in the early season because I don't see Pete and Burries improving vastly, throughout the course of a year.
Yeah, well, they're going to need to. Matthew mentioned the non-con: Florida, UCLA, UConn, Auburn, Bama, San Diego State, all in the non-con here. So we're going to find out early. Any last thoughts on Arizona here, Matthew?
Yeah, no, the three-pointers, it's really just are you playing Anthony Del Orso and having capable three-point shooters and no defense, or are you playing better defenders and struggling with three? Like, he is the swing guy. Are they playing him or not? It's going to change their lineups entirely. Yep.
All right, let's go to a less interesting team in the state of Arizona. Arizona State here, 13-20 last year. They end up 73rd at Ken Pom, 4-16 in conference. Torvis got them 69th to start the year. Ken Pom's got them 75th. We got the losses and the newcomers up here on the screen. Matthew, what do you think about Arizona State coming into this season under Hurley?
Oof. Well, it's probably going to be his last year, given that he did not sign a contract extension. And you very rarely see a coach just like sitting as a lame duck with 1 year left on his deal and no real upward mobility in that conference. Like, Arizona State's not jumping up to the upper half of this conference, even in the best cases of scenarios. I mean, you look at those newcomers there, none of them come from a power conference program. And most of the mid-major programs that they're coming from were not winning mid-major programs. And even the ones that did, there is very little in terms of, blue chip production on this roster. Now, the international guys are interesting. Noah Musin, definitely butchering the name, very, intriguing, but in their non-conference, in their exhibition game, 0 of 4, 0 points in that one. So the European guys might be a little not quite where they need to be quite yet, but obviously that's not, going to be the strength of this roster. It's going to be Mo Odom if he's healthy. He did not play in that exhibition against UC Irvine. We're not sure if he'll be ready to start the season, but he was absolutely spectacular down the stretch last season for Pepperdine into their wild run in the WCC tournament with that weird bracket style that very incrementally smaller, where everyone has to play a million times if you're a bad team like Pepperdine was. He's going to have the ball in his hands. every single possession. He's going to run pick and roll every single play, and it's going to end with him shooting the ball, or more than likely passing the ball, where he's been one of the leaders in assist rate every single year. So if he's healthy, if there's at least some level of spacing around him, they don't really have any defense or size, but they'll be a capable offensive team with him running the show.
Yeah, Odom's exciting. 7.5 assists per game last year, 0.91 fantasy point per minute. Gav, Marcus Adams, I think, is interesting too, 0.94 coming from Northridge. What are your thoughts on this team? I know that you kind of like the Belgian international guard too.
Yeah, well, you got to remember, this team was so completely ejecting down the stretch. I mean, you lose your NBA center. You have guys like BJ Freeman literally shaving points. You have other guys with a multitude of injuries, and you still only end up 73rd. That was higher than I probably would have guessed that they ended up. So, yeah. I mean, that was somewhat, optimistic. But, I mean, yeah, I was not aware of Musin until, full disclosure, I used Matthew's rankings, and I saw him, starting shooting guard. And you kind of look at the tape, and you're like, okay, I kind of see it. This is a guy who played full-time on the ball in international scenes, played in a ton of ball screens, was a pretty good shooter in those stretches. So, yeah, I think he's interesting. Marcus Adams, how real is the 1-year sample at Northridge? Northridge is kind of like the analytical darling for a lot of these sweaty guys, focusing on Big West basketball and whatnot. They've kind of made a big rise the last couple of years, but when you're 6'8" and you shoot 39% from three, you're just going to be a great connector wing that fits on any roster, even in one as bad as Arizona State's. But yeah, at the end of the day, that's still where we're at. It's not a great roster, and it's definitely bound for the back half of the Big 12. Potentially, this is the team that has complete Miami level implosion potential, I think, here.
Yeah. See, so Matthew, we're talking before the show that we each had a, Miami level team eject. Mine wasn't Arizona State. We'll talk about mine later. I definitely do get it here, especially with what you said about Hurley's contract. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I have one also that is not Arizona State. I wonder if we'll have the same one, but a couple of things there. So one for the international guys, I do want to shout out Arman Jovic, who's, very popular in the Basketball Under Review Burner Ball Discord, who puts together really awesome international European depth chart or sort of player rankings. And he had Noah Musin at 27, which is, really high for someone to end up. Most of those guys top of the list are getting paid significant funds to go to slightly better programs than Arizona State. So although he didn't live up to it in the exhibition, that's someone who has high hopes. And then Marcus Adams, I mean, if you subscribe to the analytics stat RAPM, then you are a giant Marcus Adams fan, because he is in the top 25 with all of the best players on high majors in the country. So we will see how that stat translates up from the Big West to the Big 12. He will be a serious test case to the rise in transfers using that stat.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to subscribe to something here, especially for DFS, because this team does play fast and their guards do get usage. So I'll be looking at Odom and Adams here. Gav, any other interests in this team? Anything in the front court?
I mean, you have the two international guys, right? Gerbovic and Diop. I mean, two guys who are just going to be massive wide range of outcomes. I mean, they could be anything from unplayable to, impactful role players in the scope of the Big 12. And I have no idea really where they fall until we start seeing some games. So, that inherently is kind of why I see this team as a, wide range of outcomes team itself. I mean, you got a couple other rebounders. Santiago Toure from San Diego was, top 25 defensive rebounding percentage in the country. Mukeba from Oakland, is kind of an undersized big, but a little more of a bruiser. Worked in the Horizon, but can it work, in the Big 12? Given we literally just saw Trey Townsend from the same school go to the rival, of Arizona State and not fully pan out. So yeah, it's a little bleak here, and I don't really know how to fix it at this point, other than just start from scratch and find one of these mid-major coaches.
Yeah. Any last thoughts here, Matthew?
No, I definitely agree with that. I wouldn't want to go too deep in the bench if I was anyone looking for a player, or if I was Bobby Hurley.
Yeah, agreed. All right, let's go to Baylor. Full roster turnover here, 0% returning minutes, 20 and 15 last year. They ended up 30th at KenPom, 10 and 10 in conference. KenPom's gotten 17th to start the year. Matthew, and Torvik's had him 36. Thoughts on the roster coming in? They've got a top 20 Frosh and a bunch of transfers.
Yeah, I'm a little bit closer to Torvik. I got him at 34. It's just it's the mid-major all-star team type deal that we kind of talked about with Arizona State, where it's like, where's the ceiling? Like, how high is the ceiling on a roster where like they're not very athletic? They don't have a lot of positional size, and like obviously Scott Drew has made smaller teams work, but they're like, you think about Davion Mitchell, like that's explosive. There's not a lot of explosiveness. Even VJ Edgecombe, explosiveness that doesn't really exist on this roster. They're skilled. They have, different, they have strengths in different ways. Michael Ratai is like a all-encompassing offensive player who can do a little bit of everything. Jocelyn Bodo was at the bottom of the Creighton-esque drop coverage that High Point was running, and like he'll be a great shot blocker, but he's a zero offensively. Dan Skillings has not put it together in his college basketball career. And then like I love Obi Ogbim, but even though the Mountain West is a great league, being defended by Mountain West point guards and being defended by Big 12 point guards, just from a size, physicality, and athleticism perspective, it's just a different ball game. But I do think Ogbim has to be their highest usage player, unless Tunde Yusufu, the freshman, has a great season.
Yeah, agreed. Ratai has been really good for us DFS-wise, just more of a jumbo wing, box score stuff for Gav. Thoughts on him, the Frosh, and this team here? I mean, Skillings, good point by Matt. I mean, I thought he was going to have a great year last year, kind of battled injuries all season, never really got going at Cincy. What do you think, Gav?
Yeah, also played on like one of the most miserably spaced Power 5 teams in the country, which certainly didn't help. Also played on a team that didn't play super fast, which didn't help, which Baylor won't. So he won't have that in his favor. But I think Yusufu is one of the guys that's probably a little bit higher development ceiling, but a little bit earlier on the developmental arc. I don't know if he comes in as well put together as like a Jacoby Walter or a Keontae George, but he's not far off if he's not. He definitely could be there. But yeah, I mean, it's like Skillings is the only one with Power 5 experience, and it hasn't quite, panned out over multiple years for him. The thing driving that KenPom rating is, the last 3 years without Jerome Tang, this defense has finished outside the top 60 in KenPom. So where does Ken rank the defense this year? Well, obviously inside the top 20 with a completely new roster. That's really what's driving the rating. Maybe you have some upside like with Cameron Carr. I think a guy who's more coined as a little bit more volatile personality, gets a little bit of the Scott Drew butt taps, it's all love here. Everything's nice. There's no yelling at him. Maybe he blossoms into something. JJ White was an extremely electric 3-point shooter at Omaha, but, he's a 6'2" on-ball guard, high assist percentage, so he can play next to Agdam. I think both of them can play on the ball. It's how do you project this team into kind of the first, whatever it was, 6 teams of the conference? That's just what's tough. I just think they're clearly kind of in that third tier, but we'll probably be towards the top end of it. Still hard to discount Scott Drew at any formidable level.
Yeah, I think the coach is booing a lot of this because if you just look at the projected top 8 here, Matthew, it's tough for me to get to a top 25 team. Any other thoughts?
Cam Carr is definitely the swing piece. And like when a Baylor fan will talk to me, it'll always be, what do you think of Cam Carr? What do you think of Cameron Carr? Like they're dying to have this guy hit because I think they realize that this is the guy, like they need him to be good for them to like have a shot at the top 6. Because I mean, outside of one of those better teams in the league, getting hurt or really falling off, that it's just the high upside ability that he could unlock. I mean, he's had a couple of big games. He's had a lot of chances to play between the early exhibition and they played in the World University Games this summer. And he's been much better than I probably expected him to be. That said, obviously when the lights are brightest, we'll see if he's able to perform.
Yeah, DFS here, Gav, it's going to be Abbeam. It's going to be Skillings. It's going to be Ratai.
This team reminds me of a little bit? It reminds me of a less deep Kentucky team from last year. You have your Mountain West point guard. You have your low major kind of bruiser big. You have your one P5 off ball swing shooting guard, small forward, and Skillings versus OA. It's kind of, it's kind of similar. Like, the mid-major teams, they obviously didn't have the freshman that, Yesufu is, but in a couple different ways, that's kind of what I see. So, that team, I think, finished like mid-teens. Ken Palm, I probably like Pope a little bit more than Scott Drew in 2025. So, I think 30's kind of right around where they'll hang around, just outside the top 25 most of the year.
I think the only difference is that Amari Williams was the best big man passer in the country, and Justin Bodo might be the worst big man passer.
Justin Bodo, 0.2 assists per game last year.
He won't have to make the same plays, thankfully.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep it moving here. Let's go to BYU. Fun team. Awesome year last year. After a little bit shaky start, they really put it together. 26-10, 26th is where they ended up at Ken Palm. 14-6 in conference. To start the year, both Torvik and Ken Palm very, very bullish on this team. 6th at Torvik, Matthew, and 18th at Ken Palm. What do we think coming in for BYU?
Yeah, I got them at 4 behind Arizona, and then 2 teams to talk about later. But they have the highest ceiling, I think, in the conference. Like, their peak outcome is top 3 team in the country, in my opinion. I mean, obviously, AJ DeBonsa is very much a well-known commodity. He's just a freak athlete at 6'9" who can play every position on the floor. But him and Richie Saunders, with their ability to do so many different things offensively, they could be the number 1 offense in the country in terms of like Ken Palm efficiency, wherever you want to look at your offensive efficiency stats. Kennard Davis is a 3-and-D piece, has really been highly touted as someone who's going to scale down and roll after being more of an on-ball piece at Southern Illinois. And then I'm not really sure how Rob Wright fits because he's not much of an off-ball player, more of an on-ball pick-and-roll guard who was at Baylor, obviously staying in the conference. He's going to have to be able to grow into an on- and off-ball role. Now, we watched them play their exhibition against Nebraska, and we don't want to take too much away from it, but the clear takeaway is while AJ DeBonsa and Richie Saunders are all league players offensively and can do a little bit of everything, there is not a lot they can do defensively, at least with the effort level that AJ DeBonsa gave, and then the physical tools that are kind of limiting for Richie Saunders. So that would be the real, curious question. But obviously, when you talk about DFS, like there's going to be a lot of statistics put up by this roster if Kevin Young lets them play as fast as they should be playing.
Yeah, 170th in tempo last year. Got to think that goes up with DeBansa running the show, Gav. Everyone's talking about Rob Wright. I have some efficiency concerns with him, but he's not going to have to be the alpha scorer here. At best, the third piece. Really like the Davis pickup. Like you said, Matthew, I think he works perfectly as a complementary piece on this roster. I know Gav's dying to talk about Kibakita too, so go ahead.
Whew. Yeah, no, this could be the best 4-man punch in the entire country. What do you talk about? Like potential number 1 NBA pick, maybe the best connecting wing in the country. You mentioned the pedigree of Rob Wright. Yeah, the sub 100 efficiency, sub 30% from 3 you don't love, but 27% assist percentage, sub 18 turnover. That can at least play, when you're surrounded by shooters with a Davis. But yeah, Keita, I brought up earlier, I think, a month ago about, like Awaka gets regarded kind of as, a mega rebounder. And God, now that I can't remember who else is in the query, but Keita puts up incredible rates. Even as a 6'8" guy, he's never had, minute upside at Utah or BYU. And now he has only basically a Frosh behind him who, oh boy, is going to be a project at best. Is probably the nicest way I can put it. Yeah. I have the same exact note. They were 170th in tempo last year, was 10th in the Big 12. Ken Palm projects them at the same tempo. And one thing I noticed in the scrimmage was how much DeBansa was rebounding on the interior. And yeah, him and Richie away from the ball with what Nebraska does, it was that was a project in and of itself. But with DeBansa on the interior, if he's going to be rebounding a lot, and if he's going to be rebounding, I can't imagine that they don't rip and run more. With the NBA kind of influence of Kevin Young. So I think that tempo definitely could increase, definitely something to monitor early in the season, betting and DFS wise.
Now, it is worth mentioning, though, that we talk about that pace. 115th in offensive tempo, and then way down to 76th in defensive tempo.
That makes sense.
They did play a lot of
zone compact stuff. Yep.
Yeah, zone, packing it in, transition, not a ton of offensive boards outside of Keita. So that is a point worth mentioning.
Yeah, I think the main concern I have with this team is it looks like a pretty thin bench, Matthew. But that's good for us in DFS because we want minutes from starters. So, more of a real life team concern. Do you have that same concern here? And then I just wanted to peek at the non-con. I think they've got a fairly tough non-con: Nova, UConn, Wisconsin, Clemson. Should be fun.
Yeah, it's an unproven bench. They had, in terms of guys returning, it's just Mihailo Boskovic who barely played. A couple of flashes of like a stretch big. He's got length. He can shoot the ball, inefficiently, but he can put it in the basket. And then, in that exhibition, they had a French guy, Kadim Mboop. Couldn't tell you how to actually say his name right, but 17 minutes, put up a double-double. I mean, on one hand, yeah, it's good to have starters play big minutes for this context, but like someone off of the bench is going to have to play minutes, and it's probably not Xavier Staten. Like Gav mentioned, he's not very good. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, because so they were 14th in the country in bench minutes last year. I just have to think that they condense it somewhat going into this year. All right, let's go to Cincinnati is up next. Cincinnati, 19-16 last year, 55th at Ken Pom, 7-13 in conference. Both Torvik and Ken Pom have them in the high 30s, 36 and 39. We'll go to you first here, Matthew. What are your thoughts on this team? They lost Jizzle James kind of later in the process, I guess, but I'm not sure that's the worst thing. I'm excited to see kind of full run Day Thomas here and see what happens with that.
My analysis on Cincinnati is they have 10 B+ players and 0 players ranked like graded better than that. They have a ton of players that, if you told me, well, they made the all conference third team, or well, they actually well overplayed, sure, fine. But they don't have a star. They don't have someone who's going to score, 17, 18 points per game. I mean, in terms of usage, it's obviously going to be Day Thomas's team with no Jizzle James anymore. But in terms of just pure ability, pure talent, both sides of the ball, grading everything out, there's not a guy here. And for a team that under Wes Miller has struggled offensively with, guys that have been quote unquote the guy. Now, whether they should have been the guy is a different question altogether. But if somebody stands out, if somebody steps up offensively, whether it's one of the freshmen that are highly touted in Abaya or Tillery, whether it's Sincere Harris's unbelievable defense is backed up with okay offense, which probably make him their most valuable player. It's just parsing out on any given night who is going to be leading this team in scoring and in usage. And I don't know if we have those answers today.
Yeah, Gav, Ken Pom's got them 5th in adjusted defensive efficiency to start the season. What are your thoughts on Cincy?
Well, yeah, I think they were 22nd in defense last year with much better defensive personnel. So, yeah, that's probably a stretch. Now, Cincinnati was a team that I was dancing on the grave a little bit because I was very low on their lack of spacing, and it didn't matter when they were suffocating, the 309th strength of schedule non-conference list of teams, when they were 8th on Ken Pom, but they finished up 55th because even the defense was 8th of 16th in the big 8 of 16 teams in the Big 12. And the offense was just horrible. So he goes into the portal and makes some clear archetype, changes from what, he's historically brought in. So Mustafa Cham is a super interesting 7'2" elite rim protector, very good rebounder with flashes of a stretch game, which would make him one of the most unique centers in the entire country if that even pans out somewhat. As only a sophomore from Senegal, again, developmental curve is pretty high, and he's still probably very early on, so he could be making rapid year-over-year changes. Baba Miller, was a guy with elite pedigree who just kind of, fizzled on what was a dead Florida State team for the last 3 years of Leonard Hamilton's tenure. He finally puts it together at FAU, 6'11". You shoot 34% from three, and you have a 20% defensive rebounding percentage and 120th in block percentage nationally. that's another one that generally is going to fit on any team that still may have upside because of the lack of role that he's had in recent years. And then even like a Celestine, right? Celestine played a very important role for a Baylor team that, needed some spacing. And he played that well as a 6'7", stretch four, a little bit undersized, not going to do much otherwise, but, good role player. And then, the reason it's not all on Day is, I don't know if you've ever seen Kirk Kriisa, but Kirk Kriisa is not going to step on a basketball floor and not be touching the basketball. So he is definitely going to have it in his hands, but he's an elite floor spacer and 3-point shooter. What you get defensively and everywhere else other than 3-point shooting and initiating offense is up for debate. But, there are definitely some guys that, for the love of Christ, can at least hit a 3-pointer this year because it was miserable last year. 247 3-point offense percentage. So they got a couple options off the bench here. I kind of like this Cincinnati team, which just feels insane to say after where I was with them last year. I kind of like them to finish at the top of that third tier, probably even above Baylor.
Yeah, well, we just talked about with Baylor, like their lack of size or lack of power conference pedigree. Like there is size on the Cincinnati team. They're going to start 6'11", 7'2" in the front court with Miller and Tiem, if that's what they do. Sean Abaib at the 3 is 6'8", so they'll be huge. They have much better pedigree than Baylor does, and then it's just a question of, is there any world where Wes Miller can keep up with Scott Drew as a coach? And if that is possible, if Wes Miller can go back to his UNC Greensboro days and actually put together, a consistent November to March campaign, if Baba Miller steps up, I think he's their most important player. There really is an upside with this team that Baylor does not have. I'm starting the season with Baylor ranked higher, but if you told me that flipped, I would absolutely believe you.
Yeah, I just like the upside pieces more for this team. The range of outcome on the top end, I think, is higher. But yeah, you do have the coach concerns. Wes Miller has, I'm going through it, never had a top 50 offense in KenPom. So definitely a concern there.
And it might be one of the hottest seats in the Big 12 too. So it's
true.
It's good. Pressure's going to be on from the jump.
All right, let's go to Colorado here. 14-21 last year, 87th at KenPom, 3-17 in conference. I somehow remember they had at least one big non-con win last year. I can't remember who it was. I think it was in Maui. 99th at Torvik to start the year, 83rd at KenPom. Gav, we'll go to you first here since you charted this team. Lots of incoming pieces, a couple outside the top 100 freshmen, but I think they're going to have to play on this team. What do you think?
Yeah, charting this team was not the most pleasant experience I've ever had, to put it frankly. You go 3-17 in the Big 12, and you somehow still finish inside the top 100 at KenPom, which I don't know. That just seems kind of crazy to me. But my mother taught me, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say it at all. And so I'm going to say the one nice thing I know about this team, and that's Barrington Hargress is a pretty good up transfer, I think. Shocker. He's a mid-major West Coast guy, so I'm inherently going to like him. Yeah. But 64 starts in his 2 years. He improved across the board efficiency-wise with like a massive usage increase in his sophomore year. So he was like the only other player with a 29% assist percentage and a sub-11 turnover percentage was Boogie Fland, some random I've never heard of. And he didn't even play 50% of season minutes, right? So, Hargress will definitely cure, what was an inherently awful turnover-based offense, at minimum. Will he play in pick and roll enough, to be fully unlocked is another question entirely. But at least you got some start with an on-ball initiator, kind of a bulldog. Mike Magpie is not the most well-known for his shot diet, so it's not like you're going from an analytically friendly offense to a horribly analytically minded one with a potential downside. So I think there's some potential with Hargress for sure here. But other than that, it's basically Bangkok Dak, good solid rebounder, solid defender, had a 109.0 rating in Big 12 play. Okay, but now he's the number 2 option. And after that, it's basically, a bunch of combo guard freshmen that seem quite interchangeable to a certain extent.
Yeah, 352nd last year in turnover percentage, like you mentioned. Matthew, where do we go with this team?
Yeah, I've been hearing really great things about Isaiah Johnson. You got him there as prospect number 171, and he's a 3-star recruit. So why would you expect anything from Isaiah Johnson? But he led them in scoring in one of their 3 games. They had a little bit of an international tour in Australia this summer. And then take away what you want from their exhibition game against Grace College of Indiana. But he tied for the most shots attempted on this team in only 21 minutes. He took 10 shots, led the team with 21 points on those 10 shots. Barrington Hargress, a poor 1 of 7. I expect that to probably be a bit better despite playing better teams than Grace College of Indiana. But Isaiah Johnson will probably be starting on this roster. He might lead them in shot attempts, and he might lead them in scoring. So if you're looking for the deepest of deep sleepers in terms of individual player production in the Big 12, I would suggest looking at Isaiah Johnson.
Yeah, that's scary because that means that we're gonna have to play his ass early.
When he's 3K on the first slate of the year, we're gonna be just salivating at the mouth to play him.
Oh God, that's gonna be gross. Hopefully they're not on too many slates early. I see Providence on the 14th, San Francisco on the 27th. All right, so very weak non-con. We'll probably know by the time we need to know.
It's probably good for this team as young as they're going to be. I mean, this is probably going to be the youngest team Tad Boyle has ever had. And you do got at least some veteran guys in the front court. We didn't mention Elijah Malone and Seb Ranchik, but they're just stand-in kind of average, Big 12 role players, and they're going to be full-time starters. So yeah, can they finish inside the top 100? Torvis got him 99th, KenPom 83rd. KenPom's definitely too hot on that, but I think they're probably just outside, kind of 110, 115 range.
Yeah, it was not a mistake that their only non-conference away game is the Colorado State game that they have to play away. Like that was just kind of going to happen. My other thing would be with Tad Boyle, he's a ceiling raiser. I mean, they've only finished inside the top 100 in KenPom once in his entire tenure at Colorado since 2011. So I wouldn't be surprised if they sneak into that 90 to 95-ish range, just outside, slightly overplaying what we'd expect based off of the talent on that roster.
Yeah, well, hopefully the next KJ Simpson is one of these guards for him. All right, let's go to Houston. Fun team to talk about here. 35-5 last year, second at KenPom, 19-1 in conference. That's 34-4 in 2 years in the Big 12 for Samson. Both Torvik and KenPom have them number 1. We'll start with you, Matthew, here. Do you have them number 1? And what do you think about this roster? It's not as old, but youthful upside, I would say.
Yeah, I have them number 1 as well. It's a little bit of a bet on Kelvin Sampson. If I didn't have a coach grade in my rankings, then Purdue would be number 1. But Kelvin Sampson's figured it out every year. Now he's going to have to figure it out a little bit more this year. For whatever reason, everybody hates on Chris Sinek. I don't know what the source was, so I'm not going to source it. But there was a poll, 10 people, experts were asked which 5-star recruit was most likely to disappoint as a freshman, and 7 out of the 10 picked Chris Sinek. Now, obviously, he's not a finished product. He's a bit thin, and you wonder, can he play the Kelvin Sampson tough basketball? But you have to remember, he wasn't drafted. He chose to go there, and Houston chose to add him. So it's not like he's the soft guy that doesn't want physical. This would not have happened if he couldn't do the physical play. One of Isaiah Harwell and Kingston Flemings is going to have to be really, really good. It's more likely going to be Harwell, but he's not much of a shooter. So it's just going to mean a lot more on-ball reps for Emmanuel Sharp, who's going to have to play with Milos Uzan as more of the LJ Cryer than the Emmanuel Sharp, which I think he's capable of. He's one of the best dribble scorers in the country, just did it more off-ball than on-ball. And then you mentioned Clete Vasako there. He's the Juwan Roberts of this equation. He's going to come in, play 15 to 20 minutes a game, and just get so many offensive rebounds and blocks that do nothing else but just get so many of those.
Yeah, we love some Juwan Roberts here. Manny Sharp is going to take just a piss load of threes this year, Gavin, in this starting 5. What do you think about Houston going into the season?
Yeah, I get what Matthew's saying in terms of Houston 1 over Painter 2. I mean, Kelvin Sampson over Painter. Yeah, I'm taking Sampson. I get that. I have Purdue 1 and Houston 2. I just have a couple more questions about Houston than, Purdue's floor. But look, yeah, you win the Big 12 the last 2 years by a combined 6 games. That is the Big 12. The Big 12 is the number one. You look at Ken Palm rankings, average ranking of every conference over the last 3 years. Number 1 is the Big 12. And even though the SEC stole the mantle last year, it's still, generally looked at as the best conference in recent memory. It's, they have 6 teams that probably, can challenge for a real Final Four or even national title contention to some extent. And Houston just bested every single one of them first 2 years. So it's really hard to bet against them. Yeah, I'm not ready to say that someone's going to usurp them in the Big 12 race. But, one thing I want to point out is, Usain had a really good year, 11.5, 3 rebounds, 4.5 assists. That's great. But guards in the Houston system take such steps the more years that they're in there. Look what Jamal Shed turned into, right, his final year. What Marcus Sasser turned into. He had the foot injury, but Usain still has upside for a bigger role. If we're talking, 15. 5 to 6 assists and a couple more rebounds, then you're basically talking as one of the only threats to Braden Smith as best point guard in the country. But you would also return, I think, the bar none defensive player of the year favorite in JoJo Tugler if he can stay healthy. You bring back one of the best 3-and-D, shooting guard, small forward guys in Manny Sharp, and you bring back Usain. So that's just inherently going to buoy your floor to the point where, what's the worst Houston can finish this year? 5th? 6th, maybe the absolute worst. I think what CNAC stuff comes from, I look at him a lot like I look at Nate Ament. These are guys that at their size with the skill set they have, if they put it together in the NBA, you are talking multi-year all-star type upside. But again, very early on in the developmental curve, is it translatable on defense? For sure, because the first thing you have to do as a Houston big and a Sampson defense is move your damn feet, and he's going to be as athletic as a 5 or a power forward is going to get in the country. The offensive game, I think, can be a little bit finessey at times. I think he probably plays a little bit cuter than he should given his athletic profile. And Houston and Sampson are not going to really improve that via shot diet and analytically minded offense. So he's still going to have some of these offensive stretches where you're just why are you fading away 6 feet away from the basket with a 6'8" guy guarding you, kind of thing. But he is, yes, inherently one of the best freshmen in the country. So, yeah, I don't know how much more you can add about this team and what they've done, but my God, what an absolute wagon.
Yeah, and I mistakenly called Khalifa Sacco the next Jawan Roberts. I meant he was the next Javier Francis. Chris Senac has to be the Jawan Roberts in the sense that Roberts took more floaters and little hook shots than any other big in the country, really. And Houston didn't take anything in terms of pure key rim shots. It was all little mini float game, which if Senac isn't physical enough to get all the way to the hoop, that's fine, because Houston kind of prefers those 8-foot little put up shots, because that just means JoJo Tugler is getting the rebound and dunking it home. So it's not as big of a deal in this system, and I think he'll be just fine.
Yeah, my only concerns with this team are, I don't think the bench is as good as it was last year, at least to start the year. I have at least some concerns there, but they're going to be able to figure it out. This non-con looks super manageable. I think he kind of knew that, having to integrate the freshmen. Only Auburn, Tennessee, and Arkansas in the top 100 in the non-con. All right, let's keep it moving here. Let's go to Iowa State. Interesting team, 25-10 last year. They finished 11th at Ken Palm, 13-7 in conference. Both Torvik and Ken Palm have them at the back end of the top 15 to enter the season. We'll go to you first here, Matthew. We got Lipsy coming into the season with another goddamn injury. This guy just cannot stay healthy. That's obviously a huge news swing piece for the ceiling of this team, I think.
I am starting to get a little bit worried about Iowa State. You just look at the 4 years of TJ Otzelberger. The first 3 years, really bad offenses, none in the top 50, but 3 top 10 defenses, just simply tremendous on that end. Last year, finally the offense comes. They finish 19th, and then the defense slips down to 13th. But
those guys are gone.
What really changed is like they sort of sacrificed the way that they were playing with their super hard hedges, like what Houston did, in the name of more offensive skill. They had the most offensively skilled big men that they had in the Otzelberger tenure last year, but they weren't able to play as high on the ball defensively because they weren't quick enough and able to get back. This team defensively looks more like last year than the first 3 years because, you know, their best defensive year when they finished first, they had Robert Jones and Hassan Ward as their two bigs, like unbelievably mobile for their size, great hands, blocking shots, getting steals, like extremely disruptive. Blake Buchanan is not that guy. I mean, obviously it's a different scheme than Virginia is, extremely different on the defensive end, but he is not, you know, hedging ball screens, getting to the ball, recovering, blocking shots. Like that's not his game. And so, okay, fine. There'll be a good offensive team like last year, but they lose their two on-ball creators in Keyshawn Gilbert and Curtis Jones. Even when Tamin Lipsey comes back, which won't be the start of the season, like he's an iffy on-ball creator. He's not a very good pick and roll scorer at all. He was better, more efficient off the ball. And then, you know, their other guards, Dominic Nelson, who was like a free throw merchant in the WAC, that's not going to translate up. Eric Mulder was number one in the country in offensive rating, but was a net negative in terms of on-off stats with Purdue Fort Wayne because he was only attempting shots at the basket and has no other skill. And then you're depending a lot on, you know, lower ranked freshmen. And so I just don't see this team being a top 10 offense or a top 10 defense. And if that's happening, like, where is this success coming from? Because they're 44th in offense and second on defense in the Ken Pom preseason. And I just think those are both higher than where they'll finish.
Yeah, I'm down on this team too. I mean, down relatively, obviously. I think the guard losses are just massive here. Gilbert and especially Jones bailed them out time and time again last season. Gav, thoughts on their losses and how that translates into this year with Lipsey starting out hurt?
Yeah, I mean, Keyshawn Gilbert kind of taking over, being able to create more offensively, you know, unlock the offense more with Jones's outside shooting. Yeah, the Buchanan ad is interesting because the same thing that drove Deshaun Jackson off the court, you're going to experience with Blake Buchanan. So I was really starting to come around on this team. I was kind of starting to see it because it was such a weird year last year. The Lipsey health thing kind of throws it completely off. I mean, dude, it was the thumb 2 years ago. It was the shoulder last year. And now it's the knee. I guess the silver lining is it's no like re-aggravations of anything from the past, but man, like at some point, especially with the way he plays, I mean, you know, up in your jersey, a physical on-ball point of attack defender, that doesn't bode well. You know, they were also 323rd in close games last year, 2-5. And the health just failed them down the stretch. So yeah, like there's potential that what they look like down the stretch when they lost, you know, a couple games at BYU, they get basically shot out of the gym by a veteran Ole Miss team that's got a ton of perimeter shooting. Like, you know, it's going to be uphill for them. I think, you know, Josh Jefferson, my guy here, the St. Mary's transfer was so good in his role. I hope they play more, you know, small ball five with him. This is like maybe one of the most underrated players in the country. Even actually started playing a little bit more on the ball in terms of creating out of the mid post last year. So you don't want to do that for long stretches, but you can get by with it, you know, for times. But yeah, there's it's a little bit uphill. You know, I think the question is, where do they rank in that kind of second tier teams? And yeah, if Lipsey's health doesn't sustain and he's hurt, then they may even enter kind of like the Baylor Cincy tier. But him healthy, they have upside to be the top of the second tier. And if he's not healthy, like I said, outside the third or outside the second completely. So yeah, it's going to be a big component for them heading in throughout the way.
Yeah, I'm super excited about Josh Jefferson this season. 1.07 fantasy point per minute last year, and that was with Gilbert and Curtis Jones eating up a ton of usage. If Lipsey's out for any, you know, period of time, Jefferson is going to start out just smashing the season, fantasy wise at least. And with his rates, he's going to have to play more than he did last year too. Any last thoughts here, Matthew? The non-con is tough. Like, they've got real teams in the first month of the season, and if Lipsy isn't back, like, they have to play St. John's and Creighton. We're actually going to be at those games out in Vegas, Gavin.
They're just going to need to probably play slow to start the year. Like, the tempo is kind of increased every single year with Otzelberger. They were really slow his first 2 years. And then by the time last year came around really fast, at least offensively, they're going to have to play way slower this year, especially with no Lipsy at the start of the season.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, let's go to Kansas. 21-13 last year. They ended up 24th at KenPom back-to-back, finishes outside the top 20, 11-9 in conference. Torvik's got 17 to begin the season. KenPom's got 21st to start the season. Gav, why don't you take this one first? Darren Peterson, top 3 recruit coming in. Cole Rosario, top 50 guy, and Melvin Council from the Bonnies coming in as well.
Bill Self began coaching at Kansas the 2003-2004 season. Now, I know that you were on your third job at that point, but I wasn't even in high school back then. And since then, he had the most losses in the Big 12 that he's ever had last year. He's had 2 finishes outside the KenPom top 20 in the last 2 years. And in the previous 20 years before that, there was only one other team that finished outside of KenPom. And it was a team that was 18th entering the tournament and lost by 30 to Evan Mobley, USC, and ended up like 20 whatever second.
You were just trying to get a USC reference in here.
I couldn't help myself once I saw it. But I mean, it is the pressure is building a little bit at Kansas. I mean, this is, one of the primary institutions of college basketball, and there's kind of some doubts creeping into whether Bill Self still has his fastball and kind of the new era of college sports. But the other thing is, like you said, he's putting his fate primarily in the hands of a true freshman and a guy who played, less than 50% of minutes last year. But yeah, I mean, Darren Peterson, holy shit, brother. Like this, I mean, there's a good chance he is the best on-ball guard we've seen like since Cade Cunningham. I think is a very real talk to have. It is effortless scoring at all 3 levels. It is very athletic. It is a litany of moves at every level of no matter where he is. We bet him to win the Tisdale at 550. I think for what he means to Kansas, he's going to have just basically unlimited potential to go get it. So yeah, it's him and it's Flory Badunga. You play next to a big oaf like Hunter Dickinson, and you're still top 100 in offensive rebounding and defensive rebounding percentage with the 15th highest block percentage in the country. Now he's got a lot more runway, even though the front court is, somewhat loaded bench depth wise. But that's really where it starts, and then it kind of gets a little suspect. There's a lot more questions outside of that.
Yeah, listen. I mean, we talk about Iowa State, a team that has kind of been dropping down in terms of my perspective on them going into the year. Like, Kansas is the opposite. They've been slowly trickling upwards in terms of my belief in how they'll fare. Like, just looking at this little sheet here, the newcomers and the losses, like, how bad of a fit were those losses together? Like, KJ Adams, DeJuan Harris, and Hunter Dickinson was a god-awful fit offensively on a basketball floor. And, like, for all of I'm not necessarily the highest on some of the guys that Kansas brought in to get around Darren Peterson, but they fit. Like, Melvin Council is a secondary playmaker, Rosario, Dawson, and White as the floor spacers around that duo with, clearly Badunga as the pick and roll lob threat guy, elite athlete. And then some of the other bigs they bring in Tiller and Mbia, who were very interesting. Like, if you're just saying get Peterson the ball top of the key, pick and roll with Badunga, secondary playmaker Council, shooters around him, like, they can play that way and do that over and over and over again. And that works. Defensively, obviously, Badunga is an elite defender who can do a whole bunch of different things. They have length at every position. They're going to be 6'4", taller across the board. But yeah, in terms of individual stat production, like, Peterson could very well win National Player of the Year. Obviously, there are returning guys who are unbelievable, but he's going to have the keys to the kingdom. And he is obviously the most talented guard in the country. So there's no reason why 1+1 he doesn't equal 2, and he's the best player in the country.
Yeah, 1+1 equals Tisdale plus 550. Get that in for the best freshman in the country, Darren Peterson. Yeah, I mean, I really like this team. I like them over Iowa State personally. I just like the upside way more. Flory is going to have just a bomb year. The rates were insane, as Gavin was talking about. He just needs the minutes. 16.3 last year per game. Got to think he hits low 20s here. 1.05 fantasy point per minute as a freshman playing next to Hunter Dickinson. This is just one of the green light, wheels up breakout guys in the entire country here. And yeah, I agree. I think that the complementary pieces fit. Like, these aren't guys that really need the ball a ton. Council, Dawson's going to shoot. I like the Trey White addition. I just think he's like the perfect glue guy that goes with this team. Older player who I thought played really well for Illinois last year, just as a complimentary piece. So Jackson is back after a year off. He was a top 20 recruit. We'll see what he gives them. But I just like the stealing more for Kansas over an Iowa State team where I just don't get great vibes from. All right, we will move on to Kansas State, who I also don't get good vibes from. Gav, when you're not talking, you have to mute yourself because you're echoing a little bit. Kansas State.
I'm gonna go in and out. Let me in a sec.
All right. Kansas State 16-17 last year, 65th at KenPom, 9-11 in conference. Torvik 80th to start the season. KenPom 61st. Matthew, interesting portal haul here. Looks like they just tried to get the best players. Not super concerned about the fit. What do you think overall with K-State?
Man, I hate this team.
Yeah,
this team makes me really upset. Like it really does. PJ Haggerty is someone who I didn't think would be able to, I mean, obviously you're not scaling up going from Tulsa to Memphis, same conference, but I didn't think he'd be able to handle the burden at this level. He was unbelievable at Memphis. I expect nothing else here at Kansas State. He truly is one of the best players in the country. When he has the ball in his hands, he is getting to his spot, and he's either getting his shot off or getting to the free throw line. Everyone else on this team, it's a no-go for me. Like, just going across the board, Abdi Bashir is one of the worst two-point shooters in the country. Good from three, but extremely erratic. Nate Johnson is a 6'1" 3 man. Like, he doesn't make any sense as a power conference player at all. The international guys, most of them aren't too highly regarded, except for Kostic, who could be interesting. Kamari McGriff is weird because he has 2 seasons under his belt, one unbelievably low usage and one very high usage. So he's kind of, you don't know what you're going to get. And then Marcus Johnson is not in physical game shape. Like, physically, he's just not in good. I have no other way to put it.
I've never seen him play, but I'm excited to.
Yeah, like offensively, he's unique. He can play the 4-man, maybe the 5. He's like kind of like off. He's kind of like guard DJ Burns ish. Yeah. But I don't think I want him playing the 4 like ever because of his inability to move his feet. And then he's just like 6'4". So if they play Nate Johnson and Marcus Johnson together, the two Johnsons, like, they'll be unbelievably short, but stalky. There's just nothing makes sense here. I don't like it at all.
Yeah, same. No, I just want to see Marcus Johnson. I haven't watched any Bowling Green, so I've never seen him out on the court. Gav, what do you think about this roster? Jerome Tang had the awesome season when he had 2 All-Americans kind of fall into his lap, but since then there's serious questions, I think.
I mean, is it really working with Jerome Tang? Like, 3 top 40 defenses, Baylor's defensive fall off coincides, but I mean, this guy spends money in the portal like a 50-year-old divorcee married to a wealthy guy who's about to die, like, I mean, he spends money like Lawrence Sanchez blowing Jeff Bezos money type stuff. There's no rhyme or reason. You just have a ton of money, so you spend it. The fit is, I think very questionable. It's just, how much could PJ Haggerty basically carry a bunch of, I don't even know if these are, I guess, yeah, Akron, Nate Johnson, you're the MAC player of the year and defensive player of the year. I'll give you mid-major all-star, but yeah, pulling a bunch of like mid-major guys throughout the Big 12. So I don't know what it is with Jerome Tang. It's just really hard to get a good feel here. Kostic is getting weird hub about like outside even first round potential with some of the sweaty draft guys that I follow. So maybe he could be kind of one of the surprising, portions of this team. But other than that, it seems pretty low ceiling outside of Haggerty.
If you squint really, 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 really hard, I think you could kind of see a world where like PJ Haggerty running pick and roll, Kostic is the spacer, and then McGriff is like someone who was a good roll man last year, like a really good rim finisher at UNC Wilmington. Then like it kind of makes sense, but then you just like compound it with having to play the Johnsons and Bashir, who I just like really don't want on my power conference team at all, and now it doesn't make sense once again.
Yeah, you get.
I want to squint so hard that I never have to watch this team play basketball. To be honest with you.
Yeah, you got 30% usage guys and only one ball. All right, let's keep it moving. Let's go to Oklahoma State here. Gavin's alma mater. Oh, yeah, 17-18 last year, 97th at Ken Palm, 7-13 in conference. They start the year top 50 at Torvik here, Matthew, and 69th at Ken Palm. Full eject of the roster, and some questionable personalities in the new backcourt. What do you think about Oklahoma State?
I mean, you just talked about a team that had three guys 30% usage or higher. Like that is the epitome of this Oklahoma State team. Anthony Roy was one of the highest usage, if not the highest usage player in the country in his very limited sample size at Green Bay. Kanye Clary has been extremely heavy on ball, a player both at Penn State and Mississippi State in his limited action. Isaiah Coleman was one of the leaders in the Big East in usage rate on a horrific Seton Hall team. Jalen Curry was one of the leaders in usage rate in the A10 on a very bad UMass team. Like Parsifala is an extremely effective post-up player, but one who does not really pass unless he must pass via the double team in the post. Like holy isolation. And it's like,
yeah,
they're a good exhibition team. Obviously they just beat Auburn like in an awesome game. And it was really fun to watch. And they were missing Clary and they were missing Christian Coleman and they were missing Victorious Miller, but this doesn't work. Like there's no off ball. Who's playing off the ball? It doesn't make any sense. They don't have, even their bigs like Christian Coleman and Parsifala were high usage. It doesn't make sense. Every single good player on this team needs the ball to succeed. And there is one basketball and there are 8 guys that want it. And this it won't work.
Kanye Clary not playing might be a positive for this team. Gav, we do know that they're going to play fast here. Top 15 tempo last year, always played super, super fast at Western Kentucky beforehand. What do you think about your alma mater here?
Now, the 48th best ranking is probably quite spicy. I don't even know if I can get there. Now, I do know that they will be significantly better than last year, right? He tied for third to last in the Big 12, but it was analytically the worst team in the Big 12 at the same time. It was Lutz's first year. I can excuse that. Man, I'm trying not to base it on some of the scrimmage, but if you saw some of the shots Anthony Roy was hitting, I mean, he hit a shot that didn't even fit on the goddamn shot chart. It was so far away. I mean, there are some scores for sure. Like Matthew said, everybody is generally on ball based in the backcourt. We have projected starters on the sheet, and I literally just said, "Who the fuck knows?" I have no idea who starts on this team. Not in the front court, not in the backcourt, literally nowhere. He's a heavy bench minutes guy, so it's going to be, heavy substitutions. I don't know if any player plays more than 20 minutes a game. I think Bryce Thompson played the most last year, and he wasn't even like 27 minutes or wasn't even 28, something like that. It's probably going to be a lot of the same. Curry looked pretty good, at least getting into the paint against an Auburn team that, yeah, the defense wasn't there. It was a scrimmage, but you at least see some things with Curry on the ball, Roy at least having kind of secondary creation with some pretty good range. And then like Coleman, I'll mention with Coleman, right? You crawl the ball up on just the most diabolically disgusting Pac-5 team, basically other than DePaul and Louisville, Kenny Payne, Louisville, and Seton Hall.
Yeah.
And you crawl the ball up all the time. Now you're going to get a really athletic 6'5" shooting guard, small forward guy who's going to play in the open floor, who looked much better in the scrimmage. So yeah, I think there are some signs where yes, they're going to be better than the 148th best defense. That I can guarantee you. I don't know if they'll be better than the 75th best defense. I really have no idea what's going to happen on that end.
That's the thing, right? Because Auburn had Oklahoma State had 6 steals against Auburn. That's what Steve Lutz does defensively, right? Like he is pressuring the ball, getting after it, forcing turnovers, getting steals. They didn't do that, and they don't have players on this team that have done that in their career.
I think the best way they play is basically like a fast McNeese. Okay, bear with me. Offensively, you basically have 4 to 5 maybe guys that Fall is going to probably crush that, but 4 to 5 guys who can attack off the bounce positionally. They don't have to be the most adept on ball guys, but at least they can attack mismatches or closeouts in spurts. Defensively, you just keep everybody away from the rim and hope you just don't get blown out from 3 any given game. And you try to create some turnovers with that up the line pressure. That's probably the best way that Oak State plays. Does that get them inside the top 70? I don't even know. But, I think they're probably pretty safely like 70 to 100 range. Improvement, but not much.
Listen, Roy will win them 3 games with his isolation scoring. Coleman will get hot and win them 1. Curry will win them 1. Like they'll win 6, 7 games just off of one of their on-ball guys having like a nuclear hot performance. And then that will probably be the bulk of their power conference wins.
Yeah. Well, no one on their team last year could do that. So there's that. Pretty soft non-con, only 4 top 100 teams. They do get A&M that first week. That'll be interesting.
Bucky Ball versus Steve Lutz. There might be 85 possessions that game.
All right, let's go to TCU. TCU 16-16, 86 at Ken Palm last year, 9-11 in conference. I think we just call that the Jamie Dixon now. Between 8 and 12 wins. Torvik 58 to start the year here. Ken Palm 66. So reasonable jump from the finish last year. We'll start with you, Gav. What do you think about this roster? They lose. They lost Collins early last year. A bunch of the up transfers just didn't really pan out. Kind of all at the same time there for TCU last year. Take another swing at that this season.
I mean, for this team to finish 9-11 in the Big 12 last year was actually an incredible coaching job by Jamie Dixon. This was basically a team tied for second to last with Colorado analytically in the conference. Like you said, you lose Frankie Collins, and you are forced to play with Vashawn Ouellette and Noah Reynolds through all of Big 12 play. I mean, Godspeed. I've put in 8-leg anytime touchdown parlays with better hope than that. So the fact that they even went 9-11, I mean, is a testament to Jamie Dixon. So
yeah,
do they improve? Oh man, I mean, Jaden Pierre, kind of higher floor guard from Providence, right? I mean, shot decently, but not great from 3. You have Brock Harding from Iowa. He can shoot. If you're a 6'1" white guy, you damn well better. You're probably not playing D1. So, he can work a little bit on the ball, but primarily going to be more an off-ball guy. And then Lateris Lelavicius, old Oregon State. He's just one of those archetypes that is going to fit on any team, right? When you're low usage connector wing that shoots, 42% or 38%, I think, from 3. It's hard to find a place that doesn't fit him. So they got a couple options. And then like David Punch, potential breakout. But the efficiency was definitely not there last year. Decent rebounder, pretty good defender. If the shot comes around, he could be a real force, but without it, then he's just kind of an energy, bench big almost. And then my God, pick out of the hat, all these different, backcourt bench guards that you're going to have kind of behind Harding and Pierre. I don't know how to decipher who's going to play more minutes than the other until we see games, but they're all okay, probably not even average, quality Big 12 bench players, but it's depth.
I mean, this is probably my biggest shrug team in the conference. Sure, I don't really feel too strongly either way. They're not competing for a top, 8 spot in this conference. They're not the worst team. It's been not even 5 years since that TCU team that almost beat Arizona in the round of 32. They were number 1 in the country in offensive rebounding rate with like big burly Eddie Lampkin and Emmanuel Miller. And just how much Jamie Dixon has changed his roster build in 5 years is insane. I mean, outside of David Punch, who is, lives up to the last name Punch. He's a physical guy. This team is so thin. Like Brock Harding is like 160 soaking wet. Lela Vicious is like maybe 185. Tanner Toulson, not necessarily physical. Jaden Pierre is not very big. And then you're bringing in a JUCO guy, freshman guy, and then Salachun, who is a rim protector more of a tip-out rebounder than like a Eddie Lampkin bruiser. So this is just – it doesn't feel like a Jamie Dixon team really at all to me. Now, granted, that might be a good thing given how they fared in recent seasons, but I don't know if the move to like more offensively skilled group is like a good thing given that's just not been his forte with the Horned Frogs.
Yeah, I mean, you usually just lock in the top 50 defense with Jamie Dixon. I think you make some great points about the size of these guys. He's changing the philosophy here, and I think that it could go bad, honestly, because with this roster, you're just not going to have good offense unless Brock Harding is just electric. For DFS purposes, he rates out as by far the best play on this team. So, Matthew, we do the fantasy point per minute things, and that drives a lot of the breakout candidates. 9, by far the highest on this team. Jaden Pierre is more of a floor guy, 0.65 fantasy point per minute. So yeah, it's kind of Harding and nothing else. Gav mentioned Punch is like a popular breakout. I don't really see it, honestly. O rating was below 100. Wasn't really an efficient scorer or rebounder. And it's not like he was a big-time recruit or anything, too. So that's there. Any last thoughts on this team, Gav?
You're telling me that Brock Harding and Jaden Pierre aren't Mike Miles and Damian Baugh? They aren't that far off. Come on. No, I mean, that's basically like where we're at, in the Jamie Dixon tenure.
Yep. All right, let's go to Texas Tech, a team I'm super excited for this season. I know we all are. 28-9 last year. They finished 9th at KenPom, 15-5 in conference. This was one of the larger discrepancies, Matthew, between Torvik and KenPom to start the season for a really good team. KenPom's got him 12th, Torvik down at 28th. Where are you on this team coming into the season?
Well, I have him 5th.
Yes.
Listen.
Fuck yeah.
If you grade 10-man rotations and weight everything similarly, in terms of counting stats, production, then this team's going to rank lower on your rankings because they're very unique in the sense that I'm going to put out a tweet tomorrow, which is the best 3-man trios in the country. And I have them as the 3rd best 3-man trio. Obviously, Christian Anderson and JT Toppin are ultra elite. And then I really love Lawan Watts out of Washington State. And then it's the perfect offensive build because Christian Anderson's your on-ball guard. Obviously, it's a bit of projection because he played behind Elijah Hawkins, but I think it's universally accepted that he will be a good point guard. JT Toppin, elite roller, the best roller in the country. Lawan Watts is in the Josh Jefferson realm where he's he can initiate offense from the high post. He can initiate a little bit of offense from the top of the key too, beyond 3-point arc. And then Tyree Bryan and Don Atwell are 2 40% 3-point shooters. Atwell is one of the best catch and shoot guys in the country. Luke Bamgoye is one of the best defenders in the country as a rim protector. Awesome as a raw freshman at VCU. I think Josiah Mosley is a really high upside guy who showed some flashes athletically at Villanova. And then people are talking up Jalen Petty as someone who's going to play big minutes despite not being a top 100 recruit. The thing is, if you're counting at home, those are 8 players. That's it. They have nobody else. There's one guy that was a 3-star that just classed up from 2026. There are some redshirt freshmen that were unranked. There are 8 power conference players on this team right now. So if anyone gets hurt, or if there's really bad foul trouble, or if Mosley and Petty are both too raw to actually give production and there's only 6 dudes, like Grant McCaslin will run a short bench if he has to, but there is no margin for error. Granted, the team that he's fielding, I think, is unbelievable and fits together terrifically, but there's no margin for error.
Yeah, Maryland also didn't have a bench last year and did pretty damn well.
Yeah.
Gavin, the Josh Jefferson comp for Lawan Watts, did you change your pants already? Are you ready to talk about this team?
Whew, no, but the starting 5 sure maybe needed to do it. I mean, the start, not only the starting 5, but the construction of the starting 5.
Yeah, so good.
Is just, I mean, gives me real movement. Like it's not even trendy to be high on Texas Tech. The cool kids were on Texas Tech last year when they were top 10 in KenPom. But yeah, I still think, like, if you told me there's no injuries in college basketball, then I mean, Texas Tech could be like 3rd or 4th, even better than 5th, but there is a little bit of worry there. I mean, Lawan Watts is not Darian Williams, but I'll tell you what he is damn near close to it, and the best comp you're going to find in the portal of Darian Williams. So that's just an elite get for a super savvy guy like McCaslin, who, I mean, is what, top 10 coach in the country?
Oh yeah,
at this point.
For sure.
I mean, it might even be better than that. Is just kind of one of these newer age guys that I think is just kind of bringing a different angle to coaching than some of the more tenured gentlemen that we have in the profession. But there's not much to dislike other than the depth. There really is nothing to dislike actually other than the depth. It's almost identically created to last year. You have your on-ball guy. You have your 2 shooters around him. You have a hub 4 that you can play out of through multiple different spots around the key and the perimeter. And you have JT Toppin, who, I mean, I thought he was going to be good, brother. I mean, he dragged his log on the conference through an ankle injury most of the year. Like, and the thing is, and then you replace Federico, God love him, bless him in all his glory, but you bring probably the best rim protecting bench big in the country and Luke Bamboye. Like, there's a lot to like about this team. Just pray for the health.
Yeah, Bamboye, only a sophomore too. I mean, he was really impressive as a freshman at ECU. Matthew, we talked about some fantasy points per minute so far. JT Toppin, 1.32. That's second to some guy named Zach Edey in the last 2 seasons. So the big thing for him, is there any upside for the minutes? So he averaged 27 a game last year. Man, like, with this short rotation, you said 8. We only even listed 7 because we didn't have the Frosh on here. I could see him playing 30, 32. If that's the case, I know Gavin and I bet his Wooden Award futures like the second that they came out. Do you think there's any upside for that? And if that happens, I think he's going to win National Player of the Year.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have to play over 30 minutes a game. Like, it's just obviously they had the ability to, like, it's weird though, because now I'm looking at the rotation last year and it was just Toppin and Federico at the 5. So any non-Toppin minutes were really Federico minutes. And I mean, I guess they had Devin Cambridge for a couple of games. Yeah. They just have nothing else besides Bamboye and Toppin. And listen, like, Bamboye is a better shot blocker than Federico, but it also means that he fouls more than Federico. And so I would imagine that he'll be in some foul trouble from here and there. They just can't get Toppin off of the floor with how short this bench is.
Yeah, 6.1 fouls per 40 for Bamboye in Tier A and B last year. So that is a concern. Any last thoughts here, Gav? We got 3 more teams to get through.
Yeah, I got a couple questions, Matthew. If they stay fully healthy, can they beat Houston in the Big 12? Because last year they were the only team to beat Houston, and they also beat them with JT Toppin getting ejected for the worst ejection the entire season, kicking a guy in the balls accidentally on a turnaround pass.
No, because even if they were fully healthy, Houston would wear them down. Texas Tech can get worn down even if they're healthy, and Houston will wear teams down.
I do think that they finish second, though, in this conference.
Yeah. Can they make a Final Four?
Yes,
You
because
got
you only need 7 people to play in the NCAA tournament. If they're healthy in the NCAA tournament, they can absolutely make a Final Four.
Can they win a national title?
Yeah, because they have one of the 5 best players in the sport, probably one of the 3 best players in the sport, top 10 coach, maybe top 5 coach, and a heck of a lot of roster fit. That is more than enough for me.
As a man who partakes in betting once in a while, allegedly yourself, are they a worthwhile bet at plus 2,500 at Run Pure Sports Partner DraftKings.com?
Yeah, I would advocate for that.
Good, because I have them at 30. All right, that's all I got.
There you go.
All right, let's go to a less fun team to talk about. UCF 20-17 last year, 67th at Kent Palm, 7-13 in conference, but they lose a ton. I mean, the entire roster, their 3 best players by far, Johnson, Key Hall, who was excellent last season, and John, who we talked about earlier. Ken Palm starts the year at 64. Torvik has him at 82nd. Gav, we'll start with you. I have a tough time getting to the Ken Palm number. I just don't see how in the world they would be better than last year. Go ahead.
I mean, they secretly had a really good 3-man trio last year. You had the leading scorer in the Big 12 in Keyshawn Hall. Yeah, we just talked about Mustafa Cham. Yeah, freshman year, but still elite rim protector at nothing else. And Darius Johnson's like was one of the better 2-way point guards in the entire Big 12, even if UCF wasn't great. They finished top 70, 7-13 in Kent, or 7-13 in the Big 12 is all right, but yeah, losing that kind of 3-man punch, and even like a Jordan Ivy Curry kind of, more microwave 6-man, had to start some games, losing him. Then you lose kind of some of the bots like Debo Coleman, the Mikey Williams debacle, the Jalen Sellers back injury, and you're starting from scratch with Johnny Dawkins having a pretty hot seat. And your first option is we're going to bring in Riley Kugel, who went from premier breakout candidate, at the end of his freshman year at Florida, to Mississippi State afterthought, basically last year's. Can he return to form? I think at least, he brings some upside in that facet that, maybe it gets a little bit better for him playing a little more up tempo, with Johnny Dawkins being 11th last year nationally. So Themis Folks was like a Milwaukee transfer, all Horizon guy, good assist rate, but 92 rating against tier A and B in 21 games. Not ideal. And a lot of those are tier B games playing in the Horizon. So when you said Devin Cambridge earlier, I said, did I chart him for a Big 12 team or an SEC team? And sure enough, here he freaking is. I can't believe this guy is still playing college basketball. I mean, this is, but Tyon Grant Foster can't play when he almost died on the court, but Devin Cambridge gets his 7th year. I mean, it's just disgusting. But
this is my Miami full ejection team. Matthew?
It's probably not a bad one.
This is my Miami full ejection team too. This team is absolutely awful. This team sucks. I know I watched 3/4 of this Duke UCF game that took place today. I'll give you guys some numbers from it. Obviously, doesn't matter necessarily. They didn't have Carmelo Pacheco, who, for what it's worth, it might be their best player. I mean, he shot 45% from 3 last year. Here's some numbers. Outside of Jordan Burks and Riley Kugel, outside of Jordan Burks and Riley Kugel, who went 17 of 25 from the field, that means everyone else went 11 for 45 from the field, so under 30%. Some more stats for you. Jordan Burks made 3 straight shots in the first half of this game. All 3 of them 2-pointers with a toe on the 3-point line. Just the worst shot in basketball that you cannot allow happen in today's day and age. Another one for you. 28 made field goals in the game against Duke today. 9 assists. And honestly, I was surprised to see they had 9 assists because there is no team on this team. It's just a bunch of dudes that came to play their last year of college basketball, find a way to get a pro contract and make a bag. I don't think there's any interest on this team in playing together. There's no one on this team besides Fulks who passes the ball really all that much. And he was, once again, extremely inefficient in the Horizon League. They don't have bigs with proven production. They don't have shot blocking. They don't have on-ball pressure. The only off-ball guy is Pacheco. They don't have anything. Their coach, I don't like their coach, and Johnny Dawkins. I think he's also a lame duck like Bobby Hurley.
Yeah.
The bottom will fall out. I would say that someone's likely to get kicked off this team before the season ends. They already had a guy get kicked off the team in BJ Freeman. He will not be playing with them. And he actually was kind of what was holding them together for me before he got kicked off the team. They might lose someone else before the season's over. They're not going to win more than 3 games in this conference.
Oh, I'm so glad that you have them as the eject team too.
Yeah.
So I started this team earlier today, and I was like, how the hell did they come up with this roster? Dawkins is going to play fast too, Gav. Like, this team is going to give up a shitload of points this season. They're not going to guard anyone, and they're going to play fast. Man, we are going to be targeting this team in DFS literally every game. Yeah.
I mean, Jordan Burks was like all right at Georgetown. You know,
he had a sub 15% usage at Georgetown
on a team that it was like 5
that
or
had
6
no
deep
players
for
left
many games. Yeah, that's. I was trying to find something redeeming to say about this team, but
no.
It's really I mean, Carmelo Pacheco sounds like the guy selling illegal gelato on the corner of West Hollywood. Like, and that's the guy that we're worried about missing a game. I mean, this team is so fucked 3 ways to Wednesday.
Oh yeah. I was just peeking at their non-con. We can fade them the first week. They play Vandy at home on Saturday the 8th.
Vandy's rating's a little hot, but we'll find other spots for them for sure.
That's true.
Well,
right.
talking about hot, 64th for UCF is insane. Insane.
My note was,
do they finish closer to 64th or 164th?
They're finishing closer to 164th. I have them. Where do I have them? Before we move on, just really quickly, I have them now at 108. They'll finish worse than 108.
Yeah, I have a note here. The initial KenPom rank feels 40 spots too high.
Crazy.
Let's go to Utah. You know, we can do these last couple of teams fairly quickly here. Utah 16-17 last year, 76 at KenPom, 8-12 in conference. They eject coach, bring in Alex Jensen, NBA assistant, played at Utah under Majerus. Both Torvik and KenPom have them between 70 and 75. Matthew, we'll start with you. For me, there is one guy on this team, but I'm super excited about him.
I would imagine that for you, coming from a DFS background, that's probably going to be Terrence Brown. Because I know that I've seen a lot of people. Gavin, I think it was you that was high on him with some of the stuff you're putting together this offseason. I like Keanu Dawes.
Keanu Dawes
really
is
interesting.
the guy. Yeah. This is the guy.
Yeah, but those two, I mean, Brown with his ability to get downhill to the basket is interesting if he's actually able to finish against power conference players. And then everyone else is bad. I think Ja'Kai Howard went 0 for 9 in their exhibition game. Now, obviously, it's an exhibition game, but that was not the start that I wanted to see. Elijah Moore, horrible. Seydou Traore, horrible. Those were 2 of the very worst power conference players in all of college basketball last year, and somehow they both found power conference gigs again. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of Terrence Brown, and probably should be more Terrence Brown than Don McHenry. It'll be a lot of him too.
This is Keanu Dawes wheels up smash spot, Gavin. We waited all season for him to get an actual role. They finally started him. I think it was like the last 2 or 3 games. Like his permanent rates, Matthew, were insane, but he just wasn't playing that much.
Yeah.
Once they started him, goddamn, he was so good those last couple games. 130 rating was top 50 nationally, top 150 offensive rebound, top 30 defensive rebound percent, shot 70% from inside the arc. Dude, he is going to fucking smash because no one else besides Terrence Brown is going to be able to score on this team.
Yeah.
Gav, I know you're a big Dawes guy. Anything to echo there and anything else on this team?
Utah is the neighbor who sees their neighbor come home with a brand new Corvette. He looks over his hedges and he goes, "Oh, I want one of those." So they go and get their own NBA alum to come and coach. And, they don't have the injection of BYU, but, they've liked it so much that they're going by the same playbook. Yeah, it's the Dawes show here for sure. Terrence Brown, I mean, so he was on that chart that I did, dude. He had 286 attempts at the rim. Like, It almost reminds me a little bit of Marcus Hill, he was over 300 at Bowling Green and then had to throttle way back in the ACC at NC State. The other thing about Terrence Brown is he is making the biggest possible jump that there is conference-wise. If you do a 3-year average of conference rankings, the NEC was the stone dead last, and the Big 12 is the best. So that's the type of jump he's making, and he was also only 27%, from 3. So I think there's some worry that he translates. There's decent efficiency at the rim, but it will be primarily though to Don McHenry. They'll probably run kind of more dual ball handlers, given the NBA background of Jensen. So I kind of see that happening, and then maybe there's like hope for Elijah Moore. I mean, Syracuse was so goddamn dysfunctional last year. Like, maybe he could be a little bit better than he was. I'm not saying he's going to be a world beater, but he could be a good glue wing, defensively minded. Rebound a little bit positionally. I don't know. Maybe I'll leave the light on. I'm not ready to hate on Utah as much as we have with some of these. Like we just had the UCF Mayan sacrifice.
Yeah, no, Dawes is gonna be awesome. 1.06 fantasy point per minute last year. Matthew, Gavin's guy, Elijah Moore, 0.59. No impact while he's on the court. All right, let's wrap up.
I have one more stat. If you said Ja'Kai Howard went 0 for 9 from the field in his scrimmage, that means he has more career FAA incidents in a plane than he had field goals made in the scrimmage.
Technically, you have given a correct stat. That is not wrong.
Let's close out with West Virginia here. 19-13 last year, 53rd at Ken Pom. One and done. They bring in Ross Hodge from North Texas, 10-10 in conference last year. Torvik got him 56th, Ken Pom 67th. Bit high, but Matthew, we'll start with you. This seems like more of a high floor team than a team with any ceiling floor because of the style of play that Hodge is going to bring.
All right, so I was gifted the Maryland West Virginia secret scrimmage box score that I cannot give all the information of, but what I can tell you is that of the 62 attempts that West Virginia took in that game, 31 of the 62, so 50%, were Trayson Eaglestaff and Hunter Huff. That was and of those shots that they took, of the 31 of the 62 shots that Huff and Eaglestaff took, 28 of the 31 were threes. Now, of course, they went 16 of 28. So that is well above 50% from 3. They were missing some players. They didn't have a couple of their potential on-ball guys. But it doesn't change the fact that these two guys are absolute gunners. West Virginia might lead the country in three-point attempt rate. I'm going to check right now where North Texas under Ross Hodge was last year. They were not high at all. I thought they were a lot higher. They were a little higher the year before that. They were much higher in the McCaslin years in North Texas shooting the 3. But they're going to put up three-pointers. Those two are going to be extremely high usage. Look for Jasper Floyd to be a very strong distributor of the basketball. They're going to be a good per possession offensive team, but they're not going to play fast. That's just not what Ross Hodge is built on doing. So counterbalance they should be efficient with they're not going to have many possessions to do.
Yeah, Hodge 360th and 362nd in tempo last two seasons, bottom 5 APLs as well. Gav, let's have some quick thoughts on this team. I like Brendan Lorient a ton on a per minute basis. Hopefully he's able to kind of push him to starting lineup. 25 minutes a game last year at North Texas. Really good rates. I think he's the guy that I'm most intrigued about.
Yeah, he's got some upside. He was suppressed on kind of just a role and minute basis. North Texas, who ran a pretty deep front court rotation, but was one of the guys that went with them. Jasper Floyd, the other guy that went with them. I mean, how much differently do I look at him than like a Reuben Jones, right? Who came from same North Texas, did go to the Big 10 versus the Big 12, but that's kind of, he'll probably be in a little more prominent role than Reuben Jones was. He's also not going to play for a top 25 team like he did, but that's kind of generally where I see him. Like, you get plenty of the outside shooting from Huff and Eaglestaff. And then like Ross Hodge was kind of the guy who got McCaslin playing that no middle stuff. He's really like, the Mark Adams to Chris Beard's no middle in that sense. And so West Virginia is going to be kind of similar to BYU in that they're just going to take an ass ton of threes and they're going to let up a ton too on the defensive end, given that no middle style. So it's going to be, I think, a pretty straightforward team to understand. If they hit their shots, they're going to be feisty because they're going to grind you down possession wise. And but yeah, there's not much ceiling. It's kind of the first year, just cover the ass, get enough in the portal to get things stabilized, and then start to improve second, third, fourth year.
Yep, they're in the TCU tier of
Yeah, I just think I know more what I'm getting game to game with this team than TCU. Very soft non-con too, so we'll definitely know by the time that we will need to. All right, let's wrap up the show here with some accolades. I've got mine here on the screen, all conference and the breakout players. I've got Haggerty, Peterson, DeBansa, top end, and I slid my guy Joshua Jefferson in the all-conference team. We were talking before we went live. I think there's 7 or 8 guys that are in a tier above the rest. I wanted to add Flory because I really think that he's going to smash this season. I'm just not confident that he's going to play 22, 25 minutes a game. Matthew, any disagreements there for all conference? Any guys that you would add?
Yeah, I'd swap in Milos Uzan. I think he's got to be one of the 5 best players in this conference. He's going to have a higher usage role. In my own personal rankings, I have JoJo Tugler, but I know that he would never, ever, ever actually be an all-conference player. It's just I value defense and offense as the same, which voters will never, ever do. Right. So I'd keep Josh Jefferson in instead of Tugler, and I'd swap DeBansa for Uzan just on a pure. They're probably going to go with the guy that is on the best team in the conference.
Gav?
I did the same thing. I have Uzan over DeBansa. That could be semi-Josh Jefferson pro bias, which Jefferson ends up maybe falling off for DeBansa, and we could look like a complete idiot for when this guy, scores 18 or 19 a game. It's possible, but that's basically where I ended at. Yeah, Haggerty, Peterson. I don't know. You can't leave off Uzan first team as a guy I think who's going to take a step for just a locked top 5 team that's probably going to win the conference.
Yeah, I think the counting stats might not be impressive, but the team's going to be so good that it probably won't end up mattering. I've got my breakout players here. We just talked about Dawes. I'm super high on him coming in. Flory, I think, is just an obvious one. I think it was kind of tough after the top 4 here. Krivas and Christian Anderson. I added a couple guys below that. Dede Thomas, is going to have a ton more usage without Giselle James there. I think Lorient's interesting if he gets a larger role. I added Roy just because he hasn't played much, but obviously, the usage is going to be insane. Matthew, any disagreements? Any guys that you would want to add to the breakout list this conference?
Nothing crazy in disagreements. I'm not a Brock Harding fan personally. Just if it didn't work at Iowa, I don't think it's going to work in the Big 12 because of similar reasons. But I have no extreme disagreements. Some guys that I'd consider adding. We talk about Jalen Petty at Texas Tech just by virtue of him having to fill minutes. I think he'll be pretty solid, and I've heard some good things. Some other people that kind of crossed my mind, the 2 freshmen at Cincinnati, Sean Abayev and Keyshawn Tillery, if you can call freshmen breakout guys. Those are 2 guys that I think will outplay their perception. And then Mo Odom, that's someone who I think will be on the national radar by the end of the season. If by nothing else, he might be one of the first college basketball players that I can remember in the Power 5 to at least be close to averaging a double-double with assists.
Yeah, Mo Odom, 7.5 assists per game last season. Gav, I know you always have some greasy ones for us. What do you got?
This is a little bit tougher to be greasy in this conference. I
put Banggot Dak on my list. Come on.
I think your editing privileges may have to be revoked for putting him on there. But I want to put Barrington Hargis, but how much can a guy break out who just scored literally 21 a game? But break out in terms of more kind of national perspective. But I just think the stone lock breakout, after you factor in the easiest breakout nationally in Christian Anderson, that's fully baked in, is Kevin Keita. Keita is going to have games where he's going to score like 18 and get 14 boards and just absolutely smash inside. He's surrounded by multiple on ball and shooters around him. He's going to have so much room underneath. He's never played the minutes. And like we said, has a very shaky freshman behind him. Like, it is just, he's going to have some absolutely nuclear games this year with multiple blocks as well.
Yep. He just needs the minutes, 1.04.
I think even 28, even at 28 minutes a game, he's probably going to average a double-double or be right under it, I think.
I don't think he's going to play that much, but I hope he does. 20.9 per game last year. All right, that's all the Big 12. We went a little bit long, but we had 16 teams to go through. Any last wrap-up thoughts on the conference here, Matthew, overall?
No, look, it's going to be a conference of tiers, upper, middle, and lower, which will probably help once the end of the season comes around, kind of have the pecking order set once conference play rolls in. But it might not make for the most exciting league, at least from top to bottom.
Gav, any last thoughts here?
God, the top of this conference is pretty electric. But, yeah, I think don't have a ton more other than what Matthew mentioned.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, Matthew. He's over at Basket Under Review. They are putting out just a shitload of content every single day.
Steve, we have like 2 more weeks until the previous basket is under review. Turns into the best thing you've heard from the last 4 months, because that means Basket Under Review is doing a piece of content, and in 2 weeks it's going to be the worst thing you ever hear once they start going to the monitor every time under the 2 minute.
Yeah. You're right. It's a fair point. We got to talk to Trilly about maybe doing a little bit of a swap once the time comes.
Yeah, check out his podcast, Weekend Under Review. I believe that's twice a week with Brian Ralph and at Matthew Winnick on Twitter, just like he's got it there on the screen. All right, Gav, we will be talking next week. We have to do what? We have to do ACC. We got to do the SEC and the Big Ten. I think the Big Ten is just going to be us two, because there's 47 teams in that league. So
the Big 47, yeah.
The Big 47 will be next week at some point.
And that's not your birthday.
Matthew, thanks for joining us. We'll see everyone next week.